Before story start, Liko intro Jessa YouTube PE Hoda Hi. Before we begin, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories that touch your heart and open your eyes. No one in that luxury restaurant dared to breathe too loudly, let alone intervene. The sound of a glass shattering against the marble floor froze everyone in their seats. The billionaire, Edward Kane, stood towering over his wife, his hands still trembling from the strike. She was pregnant, her hands instinctively shielding her belly, her eyes brimming with tears. Cameras turned away. Waiters stared at the ground. Everyone knew who he was, the ruthless CEO who owned half the city. And yet, on that sunny afternoon, the doors opened, and the rumble of motorcycles silenced even his rage. Samantha Kane had once believed in fairy tales. When she married Edward, she thought she'd found her prince, a man with charm, wealth, and a dazzling smile that promised safety. But behind closed doors, the prince became a tyrant. The man who once held her hand during charity galas now clenched his fists at home. Each day, she told herself it would get better. That it was just stress. That he'd change once the baby came. But every apology was followed by another bruise. Her world had become smaller and smaller until all she had left was the nursery she'd painted herself. It was her only place of peace. She would sit in that room, hands resting on her belly, whispering, "It's going to be okay, little one. Mommy's going to get us out." But leaving Edward wasn't simple. He was powerful, his money and lawyers could crush anyone. Even her parents refused to help. "He's your husband, Sam," her mother said quietly over the phone. "Maybe you should try to make it work." Try to make it work, with a man who left her trembling at every raised voice. That day, at the city's most expensive restaurant, Edward had insisted she come for lunch. "We need to look happy," he'd said, adjusting his tie. "There'll be investors there." She smiled weakly and followed, her stomach tight and her heart heavier than ever. For the first few minutes, he played the charming husband. But when she accidentally spilled a drop of water on his sleeve, his mask cracked. He grabbed her wrist under the table so tightly she nearly cried out. Then, before anyone could stop him, he struck her across the face. The restaurant fell silent. The investors froze. The waiters looked away. A pregnant woman had just been hit, and not a single person moved. Edward stood, breathing heavily, glaring at her. "You embarrass me again," he hissed, "and I swear." That's when the doors opened. The sound of heavy boots and low engines echoed in. 3 bikers walked in, rough, broad, with leather vests and road dust on their arms. They looked out of place among the suits and chandeliers. But the leader, a tall man with gray streaks in his beard and kind eyes, stopped dead when he saw Samantha on the floor. He glanced from her to Edward, and his voice came out steady, quiet, but dangerous. "You hit her?" Edward scoffed. "Who do you think you are?" The man didn't answer. He just stepped forward, his boots echoing. "I'm the man who's not gonna sit here while you do it again." Samantha's breath caught. For the first time in months, someone, anyone, was standing up for her. Edward laughed, a sound sharp enough to slice the air. "You have no idea who I am." The biker stepped closer. "Don't care who you are." He pointed to Samantha. "But I know who she is, a woman carrying a child. And you just hit her. So either you apologize right now, or I drag you out of here myself." The investors whispered nervously. Cameras began recording. Edward's face turned pale. He tried to push the biker aside, but before his hand even reached him, the biker twisted his wrist behind his back and pinned him against the table. The glassware rattled. Edward screamed, humiliated. "Apologize," the biker growled. Samantha's eyes widened. The whole restaurant was watching now. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but something else, relief. Edward spat through gritted teeth, "You'll regret this." But before he could finish, the biker released him with a shove. "No, man. You will." He turned to Samantha. "Ma'am, you okay?" She nodded, trembling. I think so." He smiled softly. "Let's get you out of here." As they walked her past the stunned crowd, Edward's shouts faded behind them. Outside, the roar of the bikes filled the air again. The biker handed her a helmet. "Name's Hunter," he said. "You don't gotta go back there." "Not ever." She hesitated. "I have nowhere to go." Hunter looked at his brothers, then back at her. "Then you ride with us. We take care of our own." Weeks passed. Samantha stayed with Hunter's family, his wife, kids, and a small group of bikers who ran a repair shop and helped women in trouble. Slowly, her laughter returned. The bruises faded. She even started painting again. When her baby was born, a little girl named Hope, Hunter was there in the hospital waiting room, holding flowers. "Looks like she's got your strength," he said with a grin. Edward tried to fight back legally, but the video from the restaurant had gone viral. The world had seen who he truly was. His empire began to crumble, sponsors dropped, the board forced him out, and soon, his name became a warning, not a brand. Months later, Samantha stood outside the shop with baby Hope in her arms. The wind brushed through her hair as the bikes lined up for another ride. She smiled at Hunter. "You saved my life." He shook his head. "Nah, Sam. You saved your own. We just gave you a road to ride on." She laughed softly. "Then I guess I'm riding from now on." Hunter handed her a small leather vest with a patch that read, "Road to Freedom." She slipped it on, looked down at her baby, and whispered, "We're free now, Hope. We're really free." The engines roared to life as the sun rose over the horizon. And for the first time in a long, long time, Samantha felt strong, seen, and alive. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us, real courage is standing up when no one else does.